an expanded pitcher preview strategy session. We'll take you into deeper dives and analytics of what we look for when picking pitchers off of the waiver wire. Beat the Shift, presented by Fangraphs, is next. Welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always is Ruven Guy. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
All right, my voice getting better every single day. What a big softball week. I tweeted it out the other day. It's just so exciting, and I'm not really a strikeout pitcher, but I tossed a doubleheader on Tuesday. Struck out 13 batters on the evening. I've never done that before in modified softball. You've been a pitcher too. Well, what's been your high on a day?
My highest in a day is probably like 7 or 8 strikeouts. That's it. I'm in a softball league also. I don't pitch anymore. How would you feel if your team lost 15-1, but you went 3 for 3 and had the most hits on your team and just was left stranded out there?
It's all about the team, right? Yeah, that's not a great situation, but at least you did everything you could on your end.
I remain fantasy relevant. That's the idea, right? Softball fantasy relevant.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, great weekend. I pitched last night, and we won again in extra innings, a walk-off 5-4, so good pitcher's duel as well. No guest today. I had an event that ran a little bit late, so just me and Ruven today, and we thought that we'd go a little bit deeper into the strategy element of picking picks, pitchers, waiver wire, and all that. We always give our picks, but we don't really give a very deep approach as to how we get there and why. So we thought for our strategy section, we would just jump right into the pitcher preview and talk about how we're getting to it, why, and what we're looking for. We'll go through maybe a player analysis or two just to give you an idea of some of the things and so on and so forth. Sound good, Ruven?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So, I take a look, and one of the tools that I use is the RotoWire probable pitchers. RotoWire, you do have to subscribe to them. It's I personally like very much. I think it's well worth it. They do other great stuff, but I love their probable pitchers. And, you start with a date, and you can go 2 weeks out, a couple weeks out, whatever you like to see. I usually pick the next 2 weeks. I start on a Monday, and it gives me the pitchers that are coming up with who they're facing, who the opponent is, by team. They really can't beat that. So, for example, looking at, first team comes up Arizona, and I see Zach Davies, Zach Gallen, Castellanos, Bumgarner, Kelly, and so on and so forth. Davies is facing Kansas City and facing the Dodgers. Dodgers not a good start. KC might be okay facing Greinke. Then what I might do is I might dig into some of his numbers. So if I like to go on Fangraphs. I put his name on Fangraphs, and you can see what he's been doing so far. So far, 4.35 ERA, 1.25 WHIP. Looks like he's striking out 18%, walking 9. That's a little bit above his average for strikeouts, a little bit above his average for walks. So more 3 true outcomes. Sierra, one of the ERA estimators, 4.39, pretty much in line. So he's been pretty luck neutral in terms of what he's doing. 2.61 BABIP, so he's actually been a little bit lucky on the hits. So that 1.25 WHIP maybe is going to come up a little bit. Not that thrilling. I then take a look at his game log. So on Fangraphs, you can pop up his game log, and you can see his last couple of games. Against the Dodgers, 4 innings, 5 runs. Yikes. Against the Cubs, 5 innings, 3 runs. 6 strikeouts, though. Decent start. He had a good start against Colorado before that. So you can take a look at his outings. I don't really love it all that much. It is to start. The problem is if you pitch him, he's going to be walloped by the Dodgers. I would feel it. So this is a guy that I probably would not start in a roto league In a points league, I might, because that Kansas City start might be decent, and whatever innings you can get out of the Dodgers might be okay for your second if it's not going to hurt you ratios in the year. So Zach Davies to me is probably a pass unless you're in an NL only league and somehow available, maybe. But points league, I would consider it as well. Sound good, Ruben?
Sounds good. I don't go as in depth as you do like that. I'm looking at game log. I want to see how many innings they pitched, and I want to see their walk to strikeout rate. I want to see how they're doing with that. I want to make sure I have a guy who's not going to kill my ERA and whip, especially my whip, because if you get a 2-star pitcher, you can get Gomber, and you can have that screw up your whole week if you have a bad outing, let's say on a Monday or Tuesday, especially let's say you're in a head-to-head league and your first starter just gets bombed. There's almost no way to recover from it unless that you hope that one of their starters gets bombed. So actually one pitcher that I'm looking at right now is Nick Pavetta. Nick Pavetta is only 45% owned in CBS. That's another thing. I want to see how many percent is owned in certain leagues. I go to the team. I actually have a team we have a team together that's a 10-team league. And in that league, I want to see who's available, because you're going to see the biggest array of players that are available there, because there are more players available, and you can see how many actual shares other people have of them, so you have an idea of how much you may have to spend on them. So let's say if you know the player's 45% owned, that means people know about him. So if people know about him, then you're going to have to spend a little bit more than you would on a player, let's say it's only like 5 or 10% owned. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind when you're trying to make your proper fab bid for these players. So Nick Pavetta, the first thing I look at, I want to see his walks to strikeouts, and I want to see what's going on in his last 3 starts. That's something that I look at too. His last 3 starts, he's had 18 strikeouts and 1 walk, which is really good. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It's 22 innings, 20 strikeouts, and 1 walk. So that's even better with a .82 ERA. Next thing I want to see their matchups, and I don't want to take a risk on a matchup that I think is going to blow up, even if it's a 2-star pitcher. So he's got 2 starts. He's possibly against the White Sox and against the Baltimore Orioles. One is the White Sox are at Chicago, and he's at home against Baltimore. So those matchups are actually pretty good. And the fact that he's only 45% owned means that people believed in him before this. So you're not just getting just a random guy who's only like 5 or 10% owned. He may not be available in a lot of your leagues, but he is someone you may want to look at.
Yep, absolutely. Let me move on to another Red Sox here, Rich Hill. So Rich Hill right now I have on the schedule facing the White Sox this week, and next week facing Baltimore and Oakland. Now, that tells me, wow, Baltimore, Oakland, that is 2 good matchups. Those teams are not fantastic hitting teams. So it's maybe pick up, maybe play for this week. The following week, that could be a play. Let's dig a little bit into Rich Hill's metrics. He's got a 2.89 ERA, 1.11 whip. Those are fantastic numbers. So far in the season, he's been great. Is that real? I'm looking at his ERA estimator. Sierra, 4.32. Maybe lucky. XFIP, 4.32. FIP, 3.38. The very big difference between his FIP and his XFIP, and the difference between FIP and XFIP have to do with that XFIP uses a league average home run to fly ball rate. His current current home run to fly ball rate for the season, 5%. His career is 11. So you can see he's been a little bit lucky. Now, pitcher like Rich Hill, maybe he controls the homers a little bit more this year. Maybe, I don't know. Left on base percentage, 75%. So he hasn't been that unlucky in that regard. Strikeout rate, 18%. Walk rate, 6%. These numbers are fair. Swing strike rate, only 8%. I mean, that's Rich Hill. He's a guy that can control to a certain point. I think that the matchup play might be good for him. He's certainly shown that his whip has been stable and really good over the years. So if you're looking for some good whip ratios and, maybe a win here and there, maybe he goes 5 innings, that's great. Look at his last 3, though. He's been great. Rich Hill, 1.2 ERA, 0.67 whip, and the FIP agrees, by the way. Last 3 starts, strikeout rate 26%, walk rate 2. Now, he had been playing somewhat easier teams, Texas, the Angels, and Baltimore, but those last 3 look good. Maybe there's a trend. To me, that looks very positive. I'd pick him up, Maybe you play against the White Sox, depends on the other options you have on your team, and looks like a play for the following week. So that's somebody who I'd be interested in looking at for this week.
Now, I have a question about him. He's a player who you don't know whether or not he's going to go 5 innings, maybe go 5 innings, maybe go 6 innings. Does that affect how much you're going to pay in Fab? I mean, are you going to spend as much as you would someone who has a better chance of going more than 5 innings, more than 6 innings?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're absolutely need a win, and this is more later in the season when you're trying to really dive into those, any one win could get you a couple points. Then you really look at it. Early in the season, I'm not looking at as much, and of course, in today's game, pitchers are pitching less anyways, so the 5 innings doesn't look as bad compared to what other pitchers are doing. So no, the short answer is at right now it doesn't really bother me. I'm looking for a chance at a win. I'm also looking for some good ratio help. I mean, if he's giving me 10 innings for the week at a .7 WHIP, that's pretty helpful. He's not going to give you a ton of strikeouts, so the only reason you'd play him really is because of the 2 start. Because let's say he even has 4 strikeouts a game. All right, that's 8 strikeouts for the week. That seems decent. But the innings doesn't really bother me as much this time of the year unless I'm somehow desperate right now, which it's very hard to be desperate this time of year.
Oh, okay. Plus, he is a known commodity, so that does play into your factor, I guess, a little bit also. Just like the guy I'm going to mention now, and that's Johnny Cueto. Yes, Johnny Cueto is back in the majors. He's on a good team also. He's a team that's supposed to be good, the White Sox. And he pitched very well his first time out. His first time out, he was able to pitch 6 innings with giving up only 2 hits, 2 walks with 7 strikeouts. That's pretty good. Now, the main test is going to be his next game. He's actually going to be playing at Yankee Stadium this coming Sunday. He's not to start this week, but he may be to start the following week. So he's what we call a future 2-start pitcher. So he's a guy to watch to see how he's able to handle Yankee Stadium coming back. Only his second start since coming back from injury. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he handles it. I don't know how much money I'd spend on him if I was going to pick him up. He's only 17% on CBS, so he is available out there. He is out there. I don't know if I'd spend that much money on him, only because you don't know how many innings he's going to go. And you mentioned about Rich Hill about not worrying about how many innings he's going to go, but Johnny Cueto, I am worried about how many innings he's going to go just because he hasn't had as many innings under his belt recently as Rich Hill does.
Yeah, that's a little bit of an injury comeback issue. A little bit different than Hill, who's old, Taking a look a little bit further here, Drew Smiley on Chicago. He lines up for a good week. Sometimes I like to look at the CBS 2-start pitchers. Just give me a nice preview. Drew Smiley, Cincinnati, and then Chicago White Sox actually playing against Cueto. Smiley has been good this year. 3.97 ERA, Sierra 3.82. So, we're not talking about, oh my God, an ace, 3 ERA. We're talking about just inside the 4 ERA. Walk rate only 5% this year, which is very good. Strikeout rate 18%. Would like it to be better. But now when I look at some of his metrics, he's been lucky. His left on base percentage 80%. Usually it's closer to low 70s is what you want is an average. Homer to fly ball rate, I'm looking at that. Hey, has he been unlucky or lucky in terms of limiting home runs? 16% is career average, about 14%. So he really hasn't that. He looks legitimately like a just under 4 ERA pitcher. Have not had a great last 3 games, but they did have tough matchups, including the Dodgers. Also, he faced Pittsburgh for the 3rd time this year. Tough to face a team, even a bad team, 3 times in the year. So Drew Smiley is interesting to me. Cincinnati, not a great team, although it's on the road at Cincinnati. At the White Sox, it's not, they are a decent team. I'm on the fence whether you should do it. Certainly if ERAs are very concerned in shallow leagues, you're not going to touch him. In deep leagues, I would give him a chance. In a points league where you're looking for some starts, I think those are interesting options. So that's how I would see Smiley for this week.
Well, you mentioned that he's facing a team for a 3rd time. The next guy I'm going to mention, Bruce Zimmerman, we've mentioned him before. He's going to be facing the Yankees for the fourth time next week, which means that there may be people who may want to sit him or even drop him for this coming week. So keep your eye out to see if people do drop him, because he gave up 5 runs today against the Yankees, which is not great, but that's the most runs he's given up this year to any team. It's the third time he faced the Yankees. He's going to face them again next week against Jordan Montgomery. So I don't like that matchup that well, but he's a guy that you may want to have for after he stops facing the Yankees, because facing a team 4 times in the matter of 2 months is just crazy. How can you possibly do really well each outing against the Yankees and doing it 4 times? I mean, the first time he faced them, he did pretty well. He only gave up no runs. 0 runs in 5 innings. Then he faced them again, 4 1/3 inning. He gave up 3 runs. And today, he gave up 5 runs. So, I mean, I don't think he's going to give up like 7 or 8 runs, but he is a good pitcher. He is going to be playing at Yankee Stadium, which is not a great play for him, but I'd hold on to him. He's a guy to hold on for the rest of the season, because so far for the year, his ERA and WHIP are not that bad. He doesn't strike out that many people, almost 9 per inning, almost 9 per game, but he's a guy that you may want to hold on to for the rest of the season. So if he's available, and he's only 39% owned in CBS, which is, I don't understand why, because in most NFBC leagues, he's not available at all. So he's a guy you may want to see if he's still available and grab, not for this week, but maybe for future weeks.
Yeah, looking at his metrics, 2.72 ERA, Sierra is 3.76. So, I don't think anybody thought he's a sub-3 ERA pitcher, but he is squarely sub-4, which is just good. It's a good ballpark there now in Baltimore. It's no longer a bad ballpark. Let's look at left on base percentage, 77%. It's not crazy, so he's not crazy lucky. BABIP, 3.11. That's actually somewhat unlucky, or at least it's definitely not lucky. Swinging strike rate, 11%. It's okay. Strikeout rate, 22%. Decent. Walk rate, 6. That's good. So his underlying metrics actually look pretty decent. Homer to fly ball rate, 7.5 in the year. That's probably the difference between the 2.7 ERA and the 3.7 Sierra, the estimator. So, the metrics check out that he could be interesting for the rest of the season. In deep leagues, he's a must-take. And it's really just matchups. You're not going to get a lot of wins out of Bruce Zimmerman on the Baltimore Orioles. I don't like to start against the Yankees again. But he's somebody to hold, especially in deeper leagues.
And having done decently against the Yankees for 3 times so far, giving up a total of 8 runs over the course of about 15 innings is not a bad thing. So if you factor in the fact that he's not going to be playing the Yankees again for a while, that may be a good thing to have for the rest of the year.
Yeah. The next one, I have Wade Miley facing the White Sox this week. 23% owned. I have no idea why he's that unowned. I had him as a nice pick in a 12-team league, according to the ATC projections preseason. I mean, he had a great year last year. 3.37 ERA. He's returning from injury. What injury did he return from? Do you know, Miley?
I don't recall. I think all the Reds pitchers, they all had shoulder injuries. So it was probably a shoulder injury. I'd have to look that up. I don't remember offhand.
Yeah. His first start this year was crappy against the Padres. 3 innings, 3 runs, first start, 1 strikeout. But then he faced Pittsburgh, 7 innings, 6 strikeouts, 1 hit. I kind of think that because he was injured, he's available right now. If he's available in a deep league, that's a must pick. Shallow leagues, perhaps it's somebody to consider before his ownership, by the way, shouldn't be 23%. So that's something to go up. Next week he would face he faces the White Sox this week. He would face the Cardinals the following week, and he would be 2-start after that. So somebody to look at there.
Yeah, I mentioned Reds. He's not on the Reds anymore, but whenever I think of Wade Miley, I think of the Reds just because he pitched last year for them, and it was an elbow injury that he had. So that is something to monitor and just to keep watch of his velocity, make sure that it is where it's supposed to be.
Now, I always joke about, let's see who faces the Pirates this week. It's the Rockies are facing the Pirates. They got 2 pitchers on the Rockies, both who are 2-starts. And I guess this is sort of a who's facing the Pirates and should you even throw a Rockies pitcher ever. But take a look. Kyle Freeland is facing at Pittsburgh, at Washington, and then Feltner is also doing that. I don't even know who the guy is. What's his first name? Feltner?
I
don't even
know.
Yeah. Well, anyways, R. Feltner. Rookie. I don't really know much about him. Rockies pitcher. Did not have a great outing his first time up. I mean, 2 start, but I don't like starting rookies in general, and rookies on the Pirates. Rookies on the Rockies. Kyle Freeland. Kyle Freeland is always interesting to me, and more interesting in points leagues because he gives you length. Not a strikeout pitcher. His swinging strike rate is up this year to 10%. Strikeout rate is still lagging. His walk rate's down. Homer to fly ball ratio is only 10%, so it's far low. So we're talking mid-4s ERA. Not a pitcher that even though he's facing the Pirates, but you can get shelled any one of those 2 outings and crap up your ERA. If you really need the wins, if this was later in the season, I'd be all over Freeland in a Roto League. Points League, I like this because it gives you 2 shots to win. Freeland gives you length, so you have more shots to win. But I would not start them in Roto. So always have to look at how bad can it be to have a pitcher go 2 starts? And, how desperate do you need those strikeouts? How desperate do you need those wins? Usually early in the season, to me, it's not worth it. I like playing the ratio guys. Later in the season to catch up, 100%. After you've padded your ERA, go for it, but not now. You agree on that?
100% I agree on that because you don't want to get, exactly like I mentioned before, getting Gombered. People got Gombered, I think it was the mid-May of last year, and that's when everyone thought Austin Gomber had 2 great starts. I think one was against the Pirates, and I think one was against the Reds and our Cardinals, and I think he blew up against the Pirates, I think it was. And once you get blown up like that and you ruin your ERA and your WHIP, it's like, especially a guy can mention, if it's in a head-to-head league, it ruins your entire week, and it's so hard to come back from that. And sometimes you're just better off throwing out a middle reliever out there and getting better ratios instead of risking blowing up your ERA and WHIP.
Speaking of Austin Gomber, he's facing Washington this week, and then he's versus Miami and versus Atlanta the following week. Can you get Gomber by Gomber next week facing Atlanta? I don't know. It's tough to start these guys. Unless you're desperate for the volume, I really stay away from these guys. Gomber has some more promise than some of the others we just talked about in the Rockies, but I want to go to the Mets. The Mets have a rash of injuries, unfortunately. Of course, DeGrom, we know, is out already. Scherzer pulled his oblique yesterday. I saw that live. Ugh. And Mcgill has also hurt. So the Mets are going with Trevor Williams as a starter. He pitched a great game yesterday, although that might be too good to be true. For the season, Trevor Williams has a 63% left on base percentage. That means he's been stranding a lot more runners than league average. That will correct itself. 7% homer to fly ball ratio, way under what he's supposed to. So that will correct. He does have a 380 BABIP, which is interesting. You would think he'd be the other way with the luck, but it looks like he's actually been unlucky on the hits, but lucky on the run. So balls are not flying out. Has he made a change? Probably not. He's probably just over right now he's pitching to a 4.2 ERA, 1.47 WHIP. He's probably going to be roughly around that for the rest of the season. He's facing San Francisco and then Philadelphia. I don't want to risk. Don't want to risk that. I just think his last start was just too good. Mets also have David Peterson, who they're going to call from the minors to fill one of those starting pitcher spots. He's facing Philadelphia this week. Then he goes to Washington. He's got a little bit more promise. He had a great 2020. This year so far, 1.89 ERA, 1.11 WHIP, 20% strikeout rate. The problem with David Peterson is his walk rate. He's 11% for this year, which is consistent with what he's had all the time. So he's going to give up a lot of base runners, and unless you somehow get out of it by magic every single inning, they'll score. He is more of a hold for me. I can see how he goes because he has promise. He showed that 2 years ago. I don't know if I'd start him the first week, but maybe grab him because I think Peterson's going to be up for the next couple of months given the wrath of Mets injuries. So take a chance on him, but I wouldn't play either of them in the short term. Agree?
I agree with the David Peterson. I think Peterson is going to stick more than Trevor Williams. Trevor Williams had a season high of 65 pitches in his start. So he's not even stretched out where he can probably give you maybe 5 innings. So you're not going to get that many innings out of him. You're not going to really get a chance for a win out of him. Trevor Williams is the long man out of their bullpen, and he should be like that, which is why David Peterson will probably get the start, and he'll probably be put into the rotation. They may use Trevor Williams as a number two guy after a starter, after an opener. The Mets may call up a guy like Adonis Medina, who looked pretty good when he got called up earlier, who may pitch a couple of innings. He was a starter also for AAA in the Mets. The Mets also have in their minor league system, they have Mike Montgomery, and he's an interesting option because he pitched pretty decently for them a couple of years ago. The only issue with him, he's not on the 40-man roster. So if you're going to pick him up, you're going to have to hope that he gets added to the 40-man roster, which is not out of the realm of possibility because of the fact of the rash of injuries. And speaking of the injuries to the Mets, I'm going to go through them right now. DeGrom, who's on the IL with a stress reaction to his scapula, he had a new MRI done which showed more healing, and he's ramping up his baseball activities. That doesn't mean he's coming back anytime soon. He hasn't started actually pitching or facing live batters, so he's still got some time. Max Scherzer, you mentioned about the oblique issue. He said he felt a zing on his left side. He hoped to stop it right away so it wouldn't be so severe, but it is a moderate to high grade sprain and could miss 6 to 8 weeks. That's where David Peterson will step in, and I think he will be the starter because in AAA the Mets don't have many other starters. And Tyler McGill, there's actually some good news. He was placed on the IL with biceps tendonitis. He was shut down for a few days to be reevaluated, but he's actually going to be starting hopefully in the next couple of days playing catch. So he may be coming off the IL sooner than the other Met injured pitchers.
Certainly feels like a regular season now with all the Mets injured, right?
100%. This is why I got into doing what I was doing. I'm a huge Met fan, and I always kept track, and I wanted to see how the Mets pitchers get injured because if you remember the starting five pitchers for the Mets of Harvey, DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler, all those guys all used to get hurt, and that's why I got into this, and that's why I started doing it.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we all too know, the Mets always get injured, but that's par for the course.
Unfortunately.
Any other pitchers to mention? Obviously, we did a little bit of a more deeper dive that I usually don't talk as much about each pitcher, but just want to give you the sort of things I look at and decisions I go through. Hopefully that helped you all in terms of, looking at guys on the waiver wire to see if it'll fit your team. Any other guys to mention?
Yeah, I want to mention another guy. I want to mention a reliever because if you don't like any of these pitchers that are out there, you're nervous that they're going to bomb, then you should look for the mid relievers who are pitching really well or possible closers for teams. Like I'm going to mention J.P. Fyrizen from Tampa Bay. He has pitched 18 in the third innings and has not allowed a run. His ERA is 0. His whip is .38. He's got 19 strikeouts. He's available in so many leagues that he's a guy that if you don't want to take one of these guys, you don't want to be Gombered, you can take him and be pretty safe. I have him on a ton of my teams ready. He's on my bench just in case these guys get injured because pitchers will get injured. So having a guy like this on your bench is very, very useful.
I'll just mention two other guys to look at. James Caprillion, 25% owned on CBS. He's playing Seattle and Texas to start. That's good starts. He had a really bad start his first outing, then he got better. If you don't count his first start of the year, which maybe was the ramp up or whatever back from injury, 2.81 ERA, 1 whip, 13% K minus BB. So that's interesting. That's a long-term dart. I picked him up in the GDD league that I do with Derek Carty, and we picked him up a couple weeks ago before he came back. We're like, let's throw a dart here and see what happens. And he's been decent since that first start. How about Martin Perez? Every year, hey, should we pick him up? Should we not? He has some good outings. He's reliable to throw some good outings here and there. And he looks good this year, actually. He's facing Oakland this week. He would be 2-start next week against Tampa and Seattle. The Tampa one is tough, but the Oakland one is actually pretty decent. So I would consider picking him up, and you never know. If you're in a deep league, I think Martin Perez should be owned already. 50% owned on CBS, so he may be available in your 12 or 10-team league as it is. Waiver wire, any bats that interest you this week, Ruben?
Yes, there are. The first guy I'm going to mention is MJ Melendez, the top catching prospect for the Royals. He's only 45% owned in CBS. He's playing now for the injured Sal Perez, who has a sprained thumb. He's going to be out at least 2 weeks. MJ Melendez already is batting 265 with 2 homers. But the only problem with him is that he's a rookie and he's struck out 10 times so far in 34 at bats. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. But if you need a guy to fill in for a couple of weeks as your catcher, and even if you have Sal Perez and he's injured, he's definitely a guy you should try to go after. And another guy I want to mention is an oldie but goodie for me because I drafted him in TGFBI, but I dropped him after the first week after his bad start, and that's Cole Calhoun. Cole Calhoun, if you look what he did in his last 7 games to today, he's batting .478 with 4 home runs. Now, he will not keep that up. There's no way he's going to keep that up. But the power is there, which means that if he starts to hit home runs, he's a guy who can hit 25, even 30 home runs if he has a full-time gig, if he's not being platooned. He's only 17% owned in CVS, so he's a guy you can definitely pick up in a lot of leagues, and if you need power, which a lot of people do because power's down this year, he's a good guy to pick up.
All right, I'll give you a couple names. Christian Walker, 30% owned on CBS. He's got 9 homers on the year. That's got to actually raise eyebrows, right? He's batting .212 on the year, but that is with a .204 BABIP. His career BABIP is .296. I smell regression. I think that is very unlucky. 20% strikeout rate this year. That's actually really good. 11% walk rate, getting on base. His barrel rate, 14% this year. His career was only 9%. I think Christian Walker is a very good corner infielder in deep leagues. Even in some 12-team leagues, it might be interesting as your last player. Certainly, if you need a power boost, this guy hits homers, batting, playing every day. He should be owned universally, I think. Mike Moustakas, 34% owned on CBS, batting .258 on the year, but this past week he's been red hot. Batting .308 on the week, 13% walk rate, only 13% strikeout on the week, a 186 WRC plus for this week. On the year, 114 WRC plus. He's batting cleanup every day. When you're batting cleanup, it doesn't really matter how great you are. You'll knock in runs when they come. You'll score runs if you get on. So Mike Moustakas, he's interesting once again. Eli White, he has 8 stolen bases. Anybody who has 8 stolen bases, you gotta take note. Now, is this a guy who just comes pinch runs? Is this a guy who just bats ninth? He's batting leadoff pretty much every day. So if you're stealing that many bases and you're playing every day, you've got to take notice. Deep leagues, he's not very widely owned. I'd really consider Eli White, who's only 10% owned on CBS. I picked him up in an NFBC league. He just gotta he's going to get you some steals, and he'll get you some runs if he gets on base, so why not? Tyler Naquin, 20% owned, 4 homers, 20 RBIs on the year. He had a home run today. The Bad X, Derek Carney's model, really loves him. I think there's a lot of worse players. I think if you're in a deep league, if you're in a 15-team league, he should be a 5th outfielder. So Tyler Naquin, take a look at him if he's available on your wire. Injury update, Ruve.
Hold on. I actually have 2 other players I want to mention since we're talking about people who should be owned more, and that's Mark Canha. Mark Canha is playing almost every day for the Mets, and how is it possible that he's only 46% owned on CBS? He's batting .299 on the year. He's got 3 home runs, and he's getting on base at a great clip. If you need a 4th outfielder, he's a perfect 4th outfielder. And you mentioned about people who steal bases. Jace Peterson, in the last 2 weeks, has batted .312, 2 homers, and 4 stolen bases. He's going to get more playing time because of the injury to Willy Adames. Willy Adames has a high left ankle sprain. He got that sliding at the home plate. We don't know how bad or how long he's going to be out for, but Luis Urias is going to take over the everyday shortstop, and Jace Peterson, along with Mike Brousseau, will be platooning at third base. If you can get Jace Peterson, he's going to get a lot more playing time. He can steal a little bit for you. He can have a little pop for you. So he's the guy you have to look out for, especially with Willy Adames on the IL.
Great calls on those. Absolutely. If they're available, check them out really quickly. All right. Injury report, Ruvain. We did the Mets injuries, but what else you got?
I got Ryan Mountcastle. Hopefully he's coming back this weekend. He's supposed to come back from a left wrist forearm strain. He He's okay swinging right now. He's hitting in the batting cage. They don't think he may need any rehab assignments, so he may be good to go. James Mccann, diagnosed with a fractured hamate and had surgery. He's out for 6 weeks. So if you need a catcher for your league, let's say you have Sal Perez, another option is Tomas Nido. He may not be playing every day, but he's not going to kill you with his batting average. Patrick McGee is available also if you're interested in walk-offs without getting a hit. Nico Horner was placed on the IL with a right ankle sprain. He has recently been cleared to return to baseball activities, so hopefully they'll be short, but Andrelton Simmons has been filling in for him until now. Kyle Lewis is supposed to be activated from the IL and play for the first time in months for the Mariners. He's being activated on Monday, and with Mitch Haniger being out for an extended period of time, Kyle Lewis is in there. He can get a lot of playing time. Remember, he was Rookie of the Year before he suffered that knee injury. So he is someone, if he's available in your league, which is possible because people have to cut rosters to get other players, see if he's available and see if you can get him. Tyler O'Neill was placed on the IL today with right shoulder impingement. We don't know how bad it's going to be. Nolan Gorman, prospect. Nolan Gorman was called up. Tommy Edman will actually move into the infield. He's going to play shortstop. So the outfield is going to be, they're going to take O'Neill's spot. It's going to either be Brendan Donovan, Juan Yepes, Corey Dickerson, all those guys. A lot of them should be available in your league, so you can go after them. Luis Heel from the Yankees actually is in the minors right now. He did come up and pitch a little bit already this year. He stopped pitching after one pitch in the start. He threw a slider. It showed diminished velocity, and then he called time, and he pointed to his forearm. Does not look good. So if you have him, if you're rostering him, hoping he'll come up, he's a guy you can definitely drop, I would believe. Eduardo Rodriguez. They haven't placed him on the IL at the time of this taping, but he is going to be going on to the IL as per the Tigers manager with left side discomfort. It sounds a lot like what Max Scherzer has, so if it is an oblique issue, it could be anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks depending on severity. So that's something, if you have him, you may want to drop him if you don't think he's going to come back anytime soon and you need that roster spot because no one's going to be picking him up next week. Jake Odorizzi, he injured his right ankle when he tried to run covering first base. At first, everyone thought it was an Achilles injury, but it's not. An MRI revealed just some strains and sprains of the ligaments in his right foot and ankle. There's still no timetable for his return. We don't know how long he's going to be out for, and the Astros have not yet named a replacement. Clayton Kershaw was placed on the IL with an SI joint inflammation. The SI joint is where the sacrum and the ilius meet. The sacrum is the lowest part of the back. The ilius is actually part of the pelvic bone. That's right below the low back, and Kershaw has had an issue with low back pain in the past with bulging discs and everything like that. He had an epidural injection, but it did not help. That is not a good sign. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. He was supposed to start throwing a bullpen this week. He did not do it, so that's red flags right there. And I'm going to end with Chris Paddock. He was placed on the IL with an elbow injury. He had Tommy John surgery this week, and he is done for the year.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Kershaw. We had on Sarah Sanchez last week, who traded Kershaw away for Bregman. Wow, what good timing. And remember, she's like, well, we don't know when he's going to get injured. And I mentioned that, remember, that playing time is wrong. You can't just, it's all front-loaded. There you go, Kershaw on the IL. So Sarah Sanchez, she got the best of that deal. Unfortunately, though, in labor, we traded Jesse Winker, who we ran out of patience with. And also, we have outfielders on our team for Eduardo Rodriguez. Wrong pitcher we asked for.
Just stick him on the IL. He'll be back in a couple, hopefully 6 weeks or so. That's my rough estimate without knowing how bad the strain is. And if he comes back in 6 weeks, he's like, signing a free agent or making a trade then. I mean, you can still get the replacement value off the waiver wire from somewhere.
Well, thank you for your optimism moving on the trade. I hope that goes better for us. What are you going to do?
And just for public knowledge, I was against the trade at the time. You can't say no because I was against that trade. I wanted to keep Jesse Winker.
It's so funny because right after I made the trade, I wrote an article which came out today on Rotoballer about plate discipline standouts and who ranks up there as one of the best who is looking at pitchers the right way and not swinging at balls and swinging at strikes. Jesse Winker. I'm like, oh no. I should have done this analysis before the trade. That's what happens, though. What are you gonna do? I'm still not. I don't think that the trade was really bad because in terms of value, I mean, I think we valued Rodriguez better and we needed a pitcher. We definitely just got unlucky. Maybe we should have asked for Tarek Skubal. Would that have been a better trade?
I don't think he would have given up Tarek Skubal for Mitch Haniger, who was slumping at the time.
Winker.
Winker. I get all. There's so many Seattle outfielders there. It's also a matter of playing time. What happens when Winker is hitting and Haniger comes back and Kyle Lewis is there, and you've got Kalenic just sitting in AAA. You know, if you have Kalenic on your team, do you drop him at this point?
In a shallow redraft league, yes. I mean, I don't know what business. I was against him from the beginning of the season. I mean, he just doesn't hit enough to stay out there. If you're in a 15-team league, sure, I guess, with a promise, but
15-team redraft league. 15-team redraft league.
At this
but
point,
a keeper league, I guess
there.
You have to hold on, right?
Keeper league, you hold on, of course. I mean, he's not even up in the majors, and what are you going to get after him? I mean, what happens when Haniger gets back? What happens if Lewis performs, just as you said? It's iffy for me. Anything shallower than 15, it's a drop in redraft. 15, if you really need the roster spot and it's a short bench, I guess you drop. Right?
So did the Mets win that trade in the end?
Oh, going that way? Well, the money was obviously ridiculous. The Mets did get Edwin Diaz, so on pure talent alone, so far the Mets are winning. I mean, the career is far from over for Kelenic. I can't say the Mets won the trade.
I think it'll depend whether or not the Mets re-sign Edwin Diaz. He is a free agent at the end of this year, and his value is right now going through the roof because he's pitching very well, and he will get his payday. And I know the Mets have big pockets now, and they can do whatever they want with money almost. So I can't see the Mets not re-signing him. So he's a guy that, you know, I think I'd rather have Edwin Diaz long-term at this point than Jared Kelenic.
That's interesting. Him and his brother saved the game the other day. Only the third time in history that a pair of brothers saved the game on the same day. Really interesting. And I saw that note, and I'm like, you know, we do have the Rogers brothers, actually the Rogers twins in the majors, the Giants and the Twins. But, sorry, not Twins. He's traded to the Padres, Giants and Padres. I would have thought maybe they would save on the same day, but I guess they haven't yet. But interesting for Diaz.
Yep.
Diaz also gave up I guess he blew the save today, although the Mets came back in the extra innings and on a Pete Alonso walk-off homer. That was pretty exciting. So, hey, listen, Mets are still in it, so we're still having fun, right?
Yep, they're still in it. They're fun to watch. They're exciting to watch. I just want to see how they do. They're going out on the West Coast. They're going to have a big road trip coming out. They're playing better teams now. And they're going to Colorado. If you're playing this week and you're in a daily league, Colorado, I don't know if you look at the weather, but it was 85 degrees today, and it's supposed to be chances of snow over the weekends in the 30s and the 40s. So if you have any hitters that you have to set your lineups for over the weekend, stay away from there because it's going to be very cold weather, and a lot of those games actually may get snowed out or rained out.
That's crazy. Very tough to play at Colorado this early in the year. If there's a rain out or snow out or something, when you're making it up, it's not easy there. All right. Well, I thought we'd do something a little bit different today, given that a little bit time. We're recording at a different time than usual. But I thought that this would be interesting for our listeners to sort of do a little bit more deep dives on players and see a little bit more of the analytics as to what goes in terms of the thought process, and hope you enjoyed it. Before we go, Ruben wanted to tell everybody where we can find your work and read your stuff.
You can follow me on Twitter at MLB Injury Guru, where I tweet out injury updates during the course of the week. I also have a weekly article that comes out on Saturdays, sometimes on Sundays, for Rotoballer, discussing all the injuries that I just mentioned, plus more. And I hope everyone enjoyed the deep dive we did for the players today, because this is what we normally do every week. Me and Ariel, we do this every week, going over all these players for all of our teams. So you got a little peek into what we talk about when we talk about players.
Yeah, obviously on the show we usually give you the highlights of some of the better findings, but sometimes helps to see the thought process. I'm Ariel Cohen. You can read my stuff over at Fangraphs, over at Rotoballer. I had an article come out the other day about early plate discipline standouts. Check that out. And you can follow me on Twitter at ATCNY. And, of course, listen to me on this show right here on the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. All right, well, it's been a good episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time on the Beat the Shift podcast. Good luck. See you then.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.